The flag belongs in a garbage bin.
Yes.
That's what we want to see. It's time that Mr. Morrison got the beating stick out and told China we're not going to be bullied by them. We are the Australian Working Crew. We represent the voice of the working class that the Labor Party have abandoned. When you look at the establishment politics, right, doesn't matter if it's the red team or the blue team, they do not give a damn about your average Aussie. All they care is about is the top end of town and appeasing them. And we just want to say to ScoMo, look, you were voted as a Prime Minister to represent us, the people. And it's us taxpayers that keep this country afloat. The problem is today is we don't like how he handled the coronavirus. Why didn't he restrict all incoming flights from China until he knew what was going on? China hid this from the world about 6 weeks before they spilled the beans what happened. And when you look at it, they were still flying out of China, they were going all over Europe, they were going all over Asia, right? And we can see what's happening in Italy. There's 450 people dying a day from average from this coronavirus. And it's...
Hang on 1 second.
He's saying to Australia, you've got a choice. Either you got America or you got China. Australia has to make that choice. We can't play both sides, do you know what I mean? Trump stood up to China with these trade wars. I'd like to see ScoMo do the same. As Mike Pompeo said, right, do not sell your soul for a pile of soybeans. Fortunately, both the red team and the blue team are not working in our national interest, and we need a new political paradigm. And Aussies need to be... We're going to vent our anger when we go down there. We're going to say that China is no friend of the free world. It's got no respect for its citizens. You see what it's doing to the Hong Kongers. You see what it's doing to the Tibetans and the Uyghur Muslims. If they treat their own citizens like garbage, what do you think they'll do to us? And you don't want them to have clout in Australian politics and influence. You've seen like with Gladys Liu, like she's a member for Chisholm down at Victoria.
I applaud the member for Chisholm. She's a great Australian who deserves to be in this house.
Victorian MP Gladys Liu is under fire over her former membership of a group with Chinese Communist Party links, claims of donations not collected or returned because of security concerns, and allegations an intelligence agency warned against her pre-selection.
And ScoMo backs her up, and the multicultural branch of a Liberal Party was asking to relax foreign ownership laws, do you know what I mean? Come on, you can't even own anything in China. It's a 70-year lease, and that's for residential only. You look at the sale of Bellamy, Australia's fourth largest baby formula producing company, that was approved by the Scott Morrison government. Then you had Josh Frydenberg that gave the go-ahead for the sale of Lion Dairy and Drinks, which is the second largest producer of milk in Australia. And you have all these foreign companies like buying like our agricultural, like our local industry. There's going to be no food. We're seeing what's happening in the shelves in the shopping centre because a lot of things are made in China. And that's the sad part is, and if they can actually bully us by not supplying us with food. So if they own all the food industry and we don't comply, they'll bully us into submission.
Here today to let Scott Morrison know that we're not at all happy with the situation that we find ourselves in. We're from the Western Sydney Workers Crew, and as I said, we're not happy at all the way this country's going with out-of-control mass immigration. You've seen their response to the bushfires, the response to the drought, and now the coronavirus. Not good at all. Now, as you know, some of you may know that the gang here, we went down to the airport on the 1st of February this year, 2020. What comes first in this country is the safety of all Australians. And all we ask for...
Can I just get you to stop filming, please? Yep. Thank you very much. Yeah.
What's going on?
Thanks, lads. Can I get you to stop your body cam, please?
And at that point of time, they were still bringing in people in flights direct from Beijing. Just complete madness. And, Australia will reap what it has sowed, and you're going to see that this situation, this is only the start of it, and the situation here in Australia will without a doubt deteriorate, and you may see something, occurring here as what we see happening in Italy at the moment. Now, you've got to give the Chinese, they're communists, but, at least they've brought this situation there over in China under control. They've taken measures to isolate and to shut down, but in Australia we haven't seen that so far. The government, as usual, has been caught flat-footed, and it's just a complete disaster. The situation is going to get worse and worse, that is guaranteed, and you're going to see lots of dead bodies. Now, we set this down at 1st of February 2020. We said exactly this. We said there will be dead bodies, and there will be, without a doubt. I think there's been about 3 or 4 deaths at this stage, and it's only going to get far worse. And what we've seen is this has exposed nasty flaws in Australia's trade relations with the rest of the world. We're too integrated with China. They've done deals with China. They've stuffed Australian manufacturing, and this started with Gough Whitlam, all this nonsense, where he signed the Lima Agreement, and that started the transfer of Western technology over to Western countries, over to third world countries, I mean. So it's just backfired, because now the Australian manufacturing has been destroyed. You're importing everything, and it's only taken something like this sort of crisis to expose just how vulnerable we are. You can't import anything anymore because it's all being made in China. It's destroyed Australian manufacturing. We're not making anything anymore. So now what they're doing to keep the economy going, they're importing immigrants in from the third world, and a lot of these are, surprise, they're from China. They're from China, and the place has been colonised by foreigners. It's just a complete, policy failure. It's a complete disaster. So that's why we're down here today, to tell Scott Morrison and the government that we're not at all happy about any of this. Now, the Chinese communists, they can't be trusted. You just can't trust communists, period, and we shouldn't be doing business with communists. And when you start buying stuff from communists, what they're doing is they're using the money they're making out of this trade to expand their military. And they're quite happy to use their military to bully people and to threaten people. And we've already seen that, where they've made threats against the United States, about they've threatened to hold back supply of vital medical supplies, masks and whatnot to the United States. And that's the sort of thing they'll do. They've been bullying people for ages.
For the protest?
They're bullying the Tibetans. They're in the South China Sea. They're belligerent and they're aggressive, and I can tell you they can't be trusted. They're communists. And the communists have a very nasty track record, a very long line of dead bodies. You've seen with the Chinese Cultural Revolution, there was 20 million dead bodies there. And I think the tally for the communists worldwide is about 100 to 120 million dead bodies. They can't be trusted, and Australia should not be doing business with them.
When you get a chance, mate, I just want to ask whether you got a Form 1 and give it to New South Wales Police or not. They're going to ask the question.
They're going to ask the question. The only reason why we didn't do a Form 1, we didn't want Antifa to show up. They're a militant left-wing extremist group.
Right.
The reason why we do flash mobs because we want a peaceful demonstration.
Yeah,
that's the reason why we've done a flash mob.
We only get what we've got to do, and then New South Wales.
That's because it's their side of the fence.
Yeah, that's right.
No, look, they're pretty good. I'll give them credit. They understand,
Yeah, we just have to inform them.
Yeah, no, go for it. I'm more than happy. My name's George.
Yeah, Chris, hey.
Nice to meet you, buddy.
Yeah, you too. No worries.
So we just want to let Scott Morrison
So the name of your group is?
The Australian Working Crew.
Australian Working Crew. Australian Working Crew.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, so we're just, like here today, just want to let Mr. Morrison much earlier, be a lot more diligent.
Yeah.
Michael Caine is from the Transport Workers Union. He's a national secretary. He asked since the beginning of the year, stop all inbound flights from China until the virus is contained. ScoMo was a little bit late to diligently act on it. The problem is, we look at Italy, right? It's not getting reported on channel 7, 10 or 9 that 450 people are dying each day from it.
Yeah.
And I'm afraid that we're going to see this here in Australia because he didn't act on time.
Well, yeah, we saw something on the news.
Yeah,
you see the Brad Hazzard report on the news?
No, I always watch the Sky News because Sky is pretty much centre. But when you look at the ABC and the SBS, they're way left. News is meant to be impartial. It's not meant to be left or right. It's meant to let you express yourself, and if you're wrong, pull you up for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it was just earlier, that's all.
Yeah,
having a conversation.
You even spoken, but you look at Italy, right? The doctor's saying that the United Kingdom is next. And we have a lot of people from the United Kingdom that come to Australia. So I can see we're going to have a lot of problems. In Rookwood Cemetery, there's 7 corpses there now. And the one thing is, it's going up, it's not going down. And if Mr. Morrison acted diligently since the beginning of the year, don't forget China hid this from the world for like about 6 weeks. When you had Chinese doctors wanting to warn their authorities, you had the Chinese Communist Party go to their local police force to shut these doctors up. And doctors are bound by oath to be truthful, not to lie. They're meant to say, if there's a problem, you need to be diligent.
Yeah, no, man, I understand you.
Yeah, no, it's all good. So
we're just here for the, the obvious reason.
yeah, no, I totally understand. But look,
But you've answered that question, so that's fine. Yeah.
no, it's all good. We just want to let Mr. Morrison know. Look, you made a few mistakes. He can still fix that up till the next election to show some leadership. I just want to bring one example from Mr. Morrison that I admire.
Excuse me, can I get your name, please?
Yeah.
Jeff Pryor.
When Mr. Morrison brought this in Australian Parliament, I had the highest respect for Mr. Morrison because he says he's supporting our local coal miners. He's supporting our electricity grid. He's talking about energy security. Coal brings us a trade surplus. Iron ore brings us a trade surplus. And when I seen him brought, I thought we got hope in this man. But when you look at him, he's getting controlled by the elitists and by the political donors and the inner city elitists not to go down this path. And I just want him to be like Trump, you know what I mean? Show some leadership, you know? That's what I want from him. It's not much to ask for, you know what I mean?
Everyone's different.
Yeah, no, I totally understand. Look, there's good points in every party.
I'd like to talk to you, but
yeah, no. Look, I totally understand. You know what I mean? Not a problem. You know what I mean? So look, when he brought this in Parliament,
Is this your current address?
I said we got hope, but we looked how he handled the drought crisis. We looked how he handled the bushfire crisis, and we're looking now at the coronavirus, and it's not looking good for him in the next election. And you don't want Albo, or if Shorten backstabs Albo, being our next Prime Minister. That actually scares me. And that's why Peter Dutton stood up and challenged Malcolm Turnbull. We need leadership. In my personal view, Peter Dutton should have took that top job. That's in my personal view. At least he's got leadership, and all these foreign nationals that's supporting our local supermarkets and going to regional, right, smashing all the supermarket shelves, he says he's not going to take that crap. That's leadership. But that's what we want. That's what Aussies want. We want leadership. And we're not getting that, you know what I mean?
you can tell me I can get some toilet paper.
Actually, we actually come prepared.
Good on you.
And he also said, Aussies, right, we are fighting over toilet paper. It's a national disgrace. The world is actually laughing at us. They can't believe that we're fighting over bog paper. It's absolutely disgrace, do you know what I mean? I just can't believe it. Like, if someone told me this 20 years ago, that...
20 days ago.
And where this filthy Chinese communist flag belongs, this filthy flag belongs in a garbage bin. That's the only place where that filthy flag belongs, mate. That's it.
Yes.
That's what we want to see. It's time that Mr. Morrison got the beating stick out and told China we're not going to be bullied by them. Show some leadership, ScoMo. That's all we ask of you. Be like Trump. Be like Boris Johnson. Show leadership. That's what Aussies want. And build more coal power stations. We want cheaper electricity prices. That's what we want. If anyone wants to follow what's happening with the coronavirus, Rita Panani has some good articles. Neil Mitchell from 3AW in Melbourne has really good articles. Thank you very much. All right, too easy, gentlemen. We'll leave you in peace.
Thanks, fellas.
We've got our footage, so we're more than happy. So
No worries.
thank you very much.
Chris, you had a polite conversation.
Yeah, well, what were you expecting?
No pepper spray, no tasers. You listened.
And good on Goswell Resting Shoebridge.
This is Australia.
Well, we're enjoying our
I've been served at Royal Aussies.
Thank you. Guys, I just want to get a quick photo with the Ruby Princess in the background, because that's, you know what that is. The Ruby Princess, where 2,700 disembarked just yesterday.
Thousands of people who were allowed to disembark a cruise ship that docked in Sydney riddled with coronavirus.
The Ruby Princess, 2,700 passengers led off into the streets of Sydney while the virus was on board. Now it's Australia's own corona cruise ship threat.
The flash mob worked out beautiful. It would have been nice if ScoMo came out and had dialogue with us. I honestly would have liked to have a chat with him. There's still time for him to rekindle what he did, but if he doesn't act in time, I don't see him winning the next election. I can actually see a Albanese government with a net zero policy, which will totally destroy our agriculture. It will destroy our local manufacturing, what's left, do you know what I mean? That's what I do see with this net zero policy. Australians need to start looking that the Labor and Liberal, they're not our friends, especially of the working class. We're the ones that pay the taxes to keep this nation afloat. Australia is a great nation, has a lot of potential, but if we don't get the right leadership in Canberra, we're going to lose this nation. I can see actually China being our new masters. It worked out beautifully. I mean, the AFP was really polite. They were nice. Normally at the airport, the AFP are not very nice at the airport. Jeffro and I, quite a few years ago, we went down to Point Piper in front of Malcolm. Wanted to ask Malcolm, why don't you take some refugees in your backyard, do you know what I mean? Like in Western Sydney, we're the dumping grounds, do you know what I mean? Why don't you have them in your backyard at Point Piper, do you know what I mean? The ship behind us, what you can see there is a Ruby Princess. 2,700 people disembarked there at Circular Quay. There was 4 people actually infected with the coronavirus. And we know that the coronavirus has a 14-day incubation period. So out of that 2,700, how do you know many more that were infected? And you can see this is what's happening in Italy, right? Because they're not properly quarantining the people that's coming in. That's why Italy, you got 450 people dying a day. And the sad part is I can see that happening here in Australia, you know what I mean? Because we're not being diligent in protecting our citizens here, you know what I mean? Well, I don't mind them coming here, but you've got to do the right thing. So if there was someone that had corona on it, the whole people on that boat before being disembarked should have been tested and quarantined in that 14-day period. Once they pass that 14-day period of self-isolation, fine, go on your merry way. You know. What I want to stop is all inbound coming from overseas. How do you know they're infected? You don't. They were not tested, do you know what I mean? It just shows we've got a lot of flaws in our system, and it comes down to lack of leadership in Canberra at the end of the day. Straight here in the garbage bin, mate. Yeah. Because if they got no respect for our own citizens, what makes you think they're going to respect us? And South Africa is a classic example of apartheid. You got the Uyghur Muslims, you got the Tibetans, and you got the Hong Kongers that are getting treated like second-class citizens, because they're not member of the Chinese Communist Party. All Xi Jinping expects, right, is you be a member of that party, and he'll let you have all the dirty money you want. And we've seen in China, like with the Uyghur Muslims, with the illegal organ harvesting, that they just got no regard for their citizens. They're actually treating them worse than cattle. At least with our cattle, we got respect, like we put them down properly. Yep. We don't harvest them for organs. But these Uyghur Muslims, they're human beings. Who gives them the right to harvest them for organs? Yeah.
So it's Jeff here from the JMO crew of Western Sydney. Now, look, we just did a demonstration outside Kirribilli House a second ago. Now, what this is about is that we're just letting Scott Morrison know that we're not all happy about what's been happening here in Australia in regards to, this whole coronavirus problem. And we, as I said before, we did a demonstration down at the Sydney airport the 1st of February, and we said, there was trouble brewing and the situation was going to deteriorate, and that's exactly what's happened. So we've come down here to Kirribilli, today to let Scott Morrison know and his government we're not at all happy. They've been caught flat-footed, they've been caught out, they've been caught on the hop, they're not prepared, they're not ready, and are highly likely they're just stalling for time at the moment so they can get organised. Well, not good enough. And because they're not organised, I think you'll see that things are going to deteriorate. You're going to get a lot of people infected. It's going to, the infections are going to increase exponentially. And there's really not much they can do to stop it, at this stage. If what we're seeing so far is any indication about the way things are going, it just doesn't look good. And as I was saying before, this has exposed wider problems that Australia has in relation to its trade and its relations with other countries, particularly in terms of its manufacturing, in that Australia sent its manufacturing overseas. A lot of it's being made in China because it's cheap, and this has really backfired on Australia. This has been done on purpose, by the way. Any Aussie that thinks that the destruction of Australian manufacturing has happened by chance is kidding themselves. This was done on purpose to destroy Australian manufacturing. It was done in the interests of globalists, because the current mob in Canberra are nothing more than tools of the globalists. They do the dirty work of the globalists, and they're the ones that are pulling the strings behind the scene. let's get this cleared up here. Scott Morrison is only the Prime Minister because he's doing the dirty work of the globalists. If he wasn't doing the dirty work of the globalists, he wouldn't be the Prime Minister. They would give anyone the kick who wasn't doing their dirty work, and that's what's going on here. They're too afraid to oppose them, and it's just, as far as they're concerned, they just want business as usual, which is the mass importation of foreigners into Australia. And Australians need to know, all Aussies need to know, they're nothing more than an economic unit to the globalists. The globalists couldn't care less about the Aussie people, they couldn't care about their culture. And, you know, it's all starting to unravel now. I think that's what we're seeing. And Australia needs to learn a lesson from this, that we possibly need to start reindustrialising. All this trade with China, all it's done is help China build its military, and the Chinese are bullies and they're communists, and without a doubt they would like to extend their tentacles worldwide, and I believe that's what we're already seeing. You know, they've been bullying various groups around the world, they've been bullying the United States, they've been bullying Pacific nations, and you know, if you know anything about communists, they simply cannot be trusted. And they've shown that historically. You've got Tiananmen Square in China, you've got the Chinese Cultural Revolution, a lot of dead bodies, and you know, the communists generally just cannot be trusted. Now, the body count for communism generally is about 120 million dead bodies, and Australia should not be doing business with communists.
What's coming up next after this action?
After this action, that'll be a matter for the inner circle of the JMO and the gang, and without a doubt there'll be more coming.
Cool.
You never know when we'll strike next. 1, 2, 3. You never know where we'll strike next.